Most people spend their entire lives trying to earn status. They work harder, improve their skills, and try to become more valuable, believing that one day recognition will naturally follow. It feels fair to think this way. It gives you the sense that the system is based on merit, that effort leads to respect. But if you look closely at reality, that belief begins to collapse. You will see people with average ability commanding authority. You will see individuals with little substance gaining influence, and you will see highly competent people, those who genuinely deserve recognition, being overlooked. This is not an accident. It is not simply unfairness. It is because status is not primarily earned. It is manufactured. This is not about becoming fake or deceptive. It is not about manipulating people for the sake of control. This is about understanding the rules that are already shaping how people see you. Because whether you participate consciously or not, you are already part of this system. The only question is whether you are being defined by it, or you are learning to navigate it. Power, influence, and status are tools. Like any tool, they can be used to exploit, or to protect, to mislead, or to lead. Understanding how status works does not make you unethical. It makes you aware, and awareness is what prevents you from being controlled by illusions that most people never question. In this video, you will understand why competence alone rarely leads to status, how perception shapes reality, and the hidden mechanisms that quietly determine who is respected and who is ignored. More importantly, you will begin to see that status is not something you wait to receive. It is something that is constantly being constructed, whether you realize it or not. As you listen, ask yourself a simple question. Have you been trying to earn something that is actually being engineered? Part 1. The myth of merit. Most people grow up with a quiet belief they never question. If you work hard, if you become good at something, people will notice. It sounds fair. It feels like the way things should work. So you follow it without thinking too much about it. You do your work carefully. You take your time. You fix mistakes that are not even yours. You stay a little longer than everyone else. You try to be reliable. Not loud, not difficult, just solid. And for a while, you believe that is enough. Then one day, something small happens that doesn't quite sit right. You are in a room with other people. It could be at work. It could be with friends. Everyone is talking, sharing ideas, reacting to each other. And then someone else speaks. They are not the most skilled person there. You know that. You have seen their work. You have corrected their mistakes before. But when they talk, people pay attention. Heads turn. Someone nods. Someone else agrees before they even finish. You sit there quietly, listening. You know more about the topic. You have spent more time on it. You have done the work when no one was watching. But no one asks you anything. No one turns in your direction. There is no moment where the room shifts toward you. You wait, thinking maybe it will come. Maybe someone will say, "What do you think?" It doesn't happen. So you tell yourself, it's fine. Maybe next time. Maybe you just need to be better. So you go back and work harder. You improve. You learn more. You become sharper. But the same thing happens again. Someone else is seen. You are not. After a while, you begin to notice something that is hard to ignore. Two people can have the same ability, sometimes even different levels of ability, and still be treated very differently. One is seen as impressive. The other is simply present. No one says it out loud, but the difference is clear. You start watching more closely. Not what people claim to value, but what they actually respond to. You notice how some people speak slowly, as if they are not in a hurry to be understood. They don't explain everything. They don't try to prove every point. They assume they are already being listened to. And people listen. Then you notice someone else who tries harder. They give more details. They fill every silence. They explain their thinking step by step so no one misunderstands. It sounds like effort. It feels like effort. And people slowly drift away. Nothing dramatic happens. No one rejects them openly. But attention fades. Interest fades. Respect becomes thinner. That is when something uncomfortable begins to settle in. People are not tracking your effort. They are not measuring how much you have done behind the scenes. They are not counting your late nights or your quiet sacrifices. They are responding to what they can see. Small things. The way you enter a room. The way you hold a pause. The way you speak without rushing. These become signals. And people use those signals to decide what you are worth. They do it quickly, almost instantly. Who to respect, who to trust, who to ignore. And once that decision is made, they rarely go back to check if they were right. So you can be capable and still be overlooked. You can be prepared and still be invisible. Not because your work has no value, but because that value never becomes something others can recognize. And when it cannot be recognized, it is treated as if it is not there at all. Part 2. Perception over reality. There is something people don't like to admit, even to themselves. They do not take their time to understand everything. They don't look deeply before deciding what they think about someone. Niccolò Machiavelli observed this a long time ago. People judge more with their eyes than with their understanding. And when you start paying attention, you see it everywhere. Walk into a room and watch what happens before anyone even speaks. People are already forming opinions. They notice who looks comfortable and who doesn't, who seems certain and who seems unsure. These judgments happen quietly, but they happen fast. There is always a moment when someone begins to speak. They don't rush. They don't look around to see if they have permission. They just start, as if being listened to is already expected. Their voice is steady. Their words are simple. There is no sign of doubt. And people listen. No one stops to ask if they are right. That comes later, if it comes at all. First, people respond to how it feels. It feels certain. It feels clear. And that feeling becomes enough. Now imagine someone else in the same room. They might know more. They might have better ideas. But when they speak, there is a small hesitation. They begin with uncertainty. They soften their words. They look at others as if waiting for approval. The difference is small, but the effect is not. The room changes in a subtle way. People stop leaning in. Some start looking at their phones. Others shift their attention somewhere else. No one announces it, but the interest is gone because people cannot immediately measure what you know. They cannot see your preparation or your experience, but they can feel how certain you are in that moment, and they trust that feeling. So if you appear confident, people assume you are capable. If you appear unsure, they assume something is missing. It happens so quickly that no one questions it. You can see this outside of formal settings too. In everyday conversations, in small groups, one person speaks as if they belong there. Another speaks as if they are trying not to take up too much space. The words may carry the same meaning, but they land differently. One is followed, the other is overlooked. And no one pauses to ask whether the judgment is fair, because it already feels right to them. That is how appearance slowly becomes reality, even when it has very little to do with the truth. Part 3. Social proof and association. There is another layer to this that most people never think about directly. It is not just how you present yourself. It is also how others respond to you. People watch that very closely. You can see it the moment someone enters a space. Before they say anything, before they do anything, there are reactions. A few people turn immediately. Someone smiles without thinking. Another person stands up to greet them. Nothing has been explained, but something is already clear. And everyone else picks up on it. They see the reaction, and they adjust their own behavior to match it. They give more attention. They listen more closely. Respect spreads in a quiet way, without anyone needing to say it out loud. Now imagine the opposite. Someone walks in, and nothing happens. No one looks up. Conversations continue. No one makes space. No one changes their posture. Again, nothing is said. But the message is just as clear. And once more, everyone adjusts. People look at how others treat you to decide how they should treat you. They rarely admit this, even to themselves. It feels automatic. It feels natural, but it shapes everything. You might believe you are being judged on your own, that people are looking at you directly and deciding based on what they see, but most of the time, they are also looking around you. Who speaks to you? Who listens when you talk? Who makes time for you? Even small things, like who remembers your name or who introduces you to others, begin to matter. These details build a picture, and people trust that picture. You can feel it in small moments. You are speaking to someone, and the conversation is going well. Then another person joins, someone with a certain presence. Without anything being said, the attention shifts slightly. The same words come out of your mouth, but they land differently now. You feel it immediately. Or the opposite happens. Someone respected introduces you to a group. Suddenly, people listen more carefully. They ask questions. They hold eye contact a little longer. Nothing about you has changed. You are the same person, but the way you are seen is different. And that difference is enough. Because people assume things quickly. If you are close to someone who is already valued, they believe you must have some value too. They do not stop to check. They do not need proof. The association itself becomes the proof. That is why some people are careful about where they stand and who they are seen with. They understand that once people connect you to something, they stop looking deeper. And whatever they see around you, they quietly attach to you, even if it was never really yours to begin with. Part 4. Scarcity creates value. There is a shift that happens when people get used to you. At the beginning, everything feels intentional. When you reply, it feels like a choice. When you show up, it feels like something given. People notice. They appreciate it. There is a small sense that your time matters. But that feeling does not stay. You keep responding quickly. You keep making yourself available. You answer calls, reply to messages, adjust your schedule, and say yes more often than you probably should. It feels like you are doing the right thing. You are being reliable. You are being easy to work with. You are not creating problems. And slowly, without anyone saying it directly, something changes. People stop asking if you are free. They assume you are. They stop checking if it is a good time. They just send the message. They just make the request. And because you have always responded, it feels normal to them. You notice it in small moments. A message comes in late at night, and you hesitate for a second. You think about leaving it until morning, but then you remember that you always reply. So you answer anyway. The next time, they message even later. There is no hesitation on their side. No apology. Not because they are trying to disrespect you, but because to them, this is how things work now. You are available. And when something is always available, people stop treating it like it has value. It becomes part of the background. Useful, appreciated, but not something they think twice about. You can feel it when plans are made. Your time is filled easily. People fit you into their schedule, not the other way around. If you cannot make it, they move on quickly. There is no real pause, no sense that something is missing. Then you see someone else. They are not always reachable. Sometimes they reply late. Sometimes they say no without giving a long explanation. Sometimes they simply do not show up. At first, it seems like they would be less respected. But that is not what happens. People adjust around them. They check before asking. They wait for a response. When that person agrees to something, it feels different. There is a small sense that it matters more because it was not guaranteed. You notice how people speak to them. There is more care in the way they ask, more attention in the way they listen. Their time is treated like something that cannot be assumed. Nothing about their skills has changed. They are not necessarily better or more capable, but their presence feels heavier because it is not always there. You begin to realize that constant availability makes you easy to reach, but it also makes you easy to overlook. When people know they can have your time at any moment, they stop seeing it as something that needs to be earned, and they do not say this out loud. They do not decide it consciously. It happens quietly, through repetition. The more open your time is, the less people think about it. And the less they think about it, the less it seems to matter. Part 5. Certainty outperforms competence. There is a moment in every group where people look for direction. It is not always obvious, but it is there. A problem comes up. A decision needs to be made. The conversation slows down, and people begin to look at each other, waiting for someone to take the lead. That moment does not go to the most capable person. It goes to the person who seems the most certain. You can see it clearly in meetings. There are people who have done the work. They understand the situation. They know the details. But when they start to speak, they take their time. They choose their words carefully. They leave space for correction. They do not want to be wrong, so they soften what they say. They add extra explanations. They leave room for other opinions. Then someone else speaks. They are not as prepared. They do not know as much, but they do not hesitate. They speak in a straight line. They present an answer as if it is already decided, and the room moves toward them. No one stops to compare the depth of understanding. No one checks who is more informed. What people respond to first is the feeling of certainty. It feels easier to follow. It feels like direction. You notice how quickly agreement forms around that person. Heads nod. People begin to build on what was said. The conversation moves forward, even if the foundation is not solid. Meanwhile, the person who knows more is still explaining, still adding context, still trying to be precise. But the moment has passed. You can see the same thing in everyday situations. A group is trying to decide something simple: where to go, what to do, how to handle a small problem. One person speaks clearly, without doubt. Another suggests something with hesitation. The group follows the clear voice. Not necessarily the right one, the one that sounds sure, and the person who hesitates begins to fade into the background, even if their idea was better. It is not that people do not care about truth. It is that, in the moment, certainty feels more reliable than hesitation. It gives the impression that someone knows what they are doing, and people move toward that feeling. Over time, this creates a pattern. The person who speaks with certainty is listened to more often. The person who hesitates is questioned more often, even when their roles should be reversed, because once people begin to see you as someone who is sure, they stop looking too closely at what you say. And once they see you as someone who is unsure, they start looking for reasons to doubt you, and that difference grows, even if nothing else changes. Part 6. Narrative controls perception. After a while, people stop reacting to you in the moment. They start reacting to an idea of you. It builds slowly, through small interactions, through repeated impressions, through things that may not seem important at the time. Someone describes you a certain way. Someone else agrees. A few experiences line up, and a picture begins to form. You may not notice when it happens, but it settles in. And once it is there, it becomes the way people see you. You can hear it in the way you are introduced. The words are simple, but they carry weight. This is the one who always helps. This is the quiet one. This is the one who takes the lead. Each sentence seems harmless, but it shapes what people expect from you. After that, your actions are no longer seen on their own. They are filtered through that expectation. If you are seen as quiet, then when you speak with confidence, it feels unusual. People hesitate. They wait to see if it is real or just a moment. If you are seen as someone who leads, then even when you are unsure, people still look to you for direction. They give your words more importance than they might deserve. The same behavior can be interpreted in completely different ways, depending on the story people already believe. You can feel it in small situations. You say something in a group, and it passes without reaction. A few minutes later, someone else says the same thing, and it is accepted immediately. Nothing about the idea changed, but the person did. And the way people see them did. Or you try to change how you show up. You become more direct, you take more initiative, you stop holding back. But instead of things improving, you notice resistance. It is not open. No one says anything directly, but there is a slight pause, a hesitation, as if people are unsure how to respond to this version of you, because it does not match the picture they already have, and it is easier for them to hold on to that picture than to update it. So they wait. They expect you to return to who you were, and until that picture changes, everything you do is measured against it. That is the part that is easy to miss. You are not just being observed in the moment. You are being placed inside a story. And once that story feels complete to them, they stop looking for anything that does not fit. Part 7. The validation trap. There is a moment when you say something, and before anyone responds, you feel the need to explain it again. You add more detail. You repeat your point in a different way. You try to make sure everyone understands. It feels harmless. It even feels responsible. You don't want to be misunderstood. You want people to see your point clearly. But something shifts in that moment. You can see it in their faces. Not in an obvious way, just a slight change. Their attention softens. Their interest fades just a little. They stop leaning in, because without saying it, you have already told them something. You are not sure they will accept what you said. And once they feel that, they start to question it too. You see it happen in conversations. Someone shares an idea, then quickly follows it with reasons, explanations, and justifications. They keep talking, trying to make it stronger. But the more they add, the less solid it sounds. It begins to feel like they are asking for agreement, not offering something to consider. And people respond to that quietly. They don't always disagree. They don't always challenge. They just don't fully accept it. Then you watch someone else. They say less. They make their point, and they stop. They don't rush to fill the silence. They don't explain every angle. They leave space. At first, that silence feels uncomfortable. It hangs there for a moment, but then something else happens. People lean in. They think about what was said. They respond to it more directly. The words carry more weight, not because there were more of them, but because they were left alone. There was no need to convince. You begin to notice the difference in other situations too. When someone finishes speaking and immediately looks around for reactions, for agreement, for approval, there is a certain tension in that. A quiet request. Do you agree? Was that good enough? They may not say it out loud, but it is felt. And once it is felt, the dynamic changes. Because the moment you look for validation, you place the decision in someone else's hands. You allow them to decide whether what you said has value, and people feel that. Now, compare it to someone who does not do that. They speak, and then they sit back. Their expression does not change. They are not scanning the room for approval. They are not adjusting themselves based on reactions. They have already accepted what they said, so others follow that lead. It shows up in small habits. Explaining yourself too quickly. Defending a decision before anyone questions it. Adding reasons when none were asked for. Each time, it feels like you are strengthening your position, but often, it does the opposite. It signals that what you said might not be enough on its own. And once that doubt appears, even slightly, it spreads. People begin to look for flaws. They begin to question. They begin to hold back their agreement. Not because your idea is weak, but because it was presented as something that needed approval. There is a quiet difference between sharing something and trying to prove it. And people can feel it, even when nothing is said. So the more you try to convince, the more it feels like something is missing. And the more it feels like something is missing, the less people treat it as complete. Part 8. The silent signals of status. Most of what people notice is never said out loud. It is not in what you claim. It is not in what you announce. It is in the small things that repeat over time. The way you respond when something goes wrong, the way you handle pressure, the way you react when someone challenges you. These moments pass quickly, but people remember them. Not as clear memories, but as impressions. You can see it in a tense situation. Something unexpected happens. A problem appears. Everyone feels it. The room tightens. Voices change slightly. One person reacts immediately. They rush to fix it. They speak quickly. They try to regain control. There is movement, but there is also tension. Another person pauses. Not for long, just enough. They look at the situation without reacting right away. Their voice stays steady. Their movements are slower. There is no sign of panic. And that difference is noticed. No one comments on it. No one points it out. But it settles in the background. People remember how it felt to be around that. The same thing happens when someone pushes your limits. A comment is made. A line is crossed, slightly. It is not obvious, but it is there. You can react in many ways. You can laugh it off. You can ignore it. You can explain yourself. You can try to smooth it over. Or you can simply not accept it. Not loudly, not aggressively, just not accept it. A pause, a look, a short response, and then you move on. That moment stays. Because people watch what you tolerate. They watch what you let pass and what you quietly stop. Over time, they adjust to it. They learn where the line is, even if you never explain it. You can also see it in how people choose where to place their attention. Some say yes to everything, every request, every invitation, every conversation. They are always present, always involved. It seems like engagement, but over time, it becomes predictable. There is no selection, no filter, and because of that, each moment carries less weight. Then there are those who choose more carefully. They are present, but not everywhere. They engage, but not with everything. When they speak, it feels intentional, not automatic. And people notice that too. Not consciously, not in a way they can describe, but they feel it. Because patterns are stronger than words. You can tell people who you are. You can describe yourself in many ways, but what stays with them is not what you said. It is what they have seen, over and over again. The way you hold yourself, the things you accept, the things you do not. These become signals, quiet, consistent signals. And over time, those signals build something that does not need to be explained. Because by then, it already feels clear. For the next 7 days, shift your focus. Stop trying to prove your value and start observing how you present it. Speak with more clarity and certainty. Reduce unnecessary explanations. Be more intentional with your time and attention. Pay attention to how you are positioned in conversations and how others respond to subtle changes in your behavior. You may notice that small adjustments in perception create significant changes in how you are treated. This is not about abandoning competence. It is about understanding that competence without visibility is often ignored. If you focus only on becoming valuable but ignore how value is perceived, you will often be overlooked by those who understand the system better. Status is not simply a reward for effort. It is a result of how that effort is framed and perceived. If you want to understand the deeper dynamics of power, perception, and influence, subscribe to The Less You Look. Because the most important truths are rarely hidden. They are simply not recognized. Machiavelli did not argue that reality is meaningless. He argued that in the world of power, perception often shapes reality. And once you understand that, you stop waiting for recognition to come naturally. You begin to see that status is not something that happens to you. It is something that is being constructed every single day. The real question is not whether status is real. The real question is whether you are building it or unknowingly giving it away.